Howard came under fire from the opposition when it claimed that Mr. Howard had told 27 lies to the public, claims that John Howard rejects. Well, our next guest believes it's fairly easy to tell when someone is lying. All you have to do is look for the right signs. He is Stan Walters, and he's been specialising in detecting lies with the FBI for the past 30 years. He's also the author of the best-selling book, The Principles of Kinetic Interviewing and Interrogation. And Stan Walters is with us in the studio. Good morning to you.
Good morning, Steve. How are you?
A lot of people still aren't convinced about lie detectors and the ethics of lie detector tests. Do you still confront the gimmicky image?
The instrument does what it's supposed to do, the real genuine lie detector, but it still depends on the examiner running the test. It's like scalpels and race cars. Wonderful instruments, you won't want me handling either one of them. So it depends on the skill of the individual preparing the test and making the analysis. But on a day-to-day basis, we as individuals can make assessments about individuals who making claims to us or comments. Are they being truthful or credible with
without all the wires,
without all the wires,
and everything.
right?
And you're convinced, given that rider, that the results can be conclusive. You can establish when someone is telling the truth and when they're not. You
can get a pretty high probability. In our clinical studies on looking at behaviors, listening to verbal cues, we could find our observers could get up to 90% accuracy. But that's in a clinical condition. Day to day, if you're getting 2 out of 3, you're doing extremely well in spotting deception.
All right, now I don't know how long you've been in our country, but truth and credibility has become quite an issue as Australia moves towards a national election. I want to show you part of an interview I did with our Prime Minister earlier this week, and then I'll come back and ask you for a reaction. Here it is now.
I mean, you've got this poll now that says half the people surveyed think you lied to them about the children overboard affair.
I didn't. I mean, that's not to say that some people won't think that. I mean, some people will think ill of me no matter what I do.
Now, I don't want you to make a judgment on that.
Yeah, I'd like to stay for 3 or 4 more days if I can.
But if I was asked you, if I did ask you, could you form a view? Don't.
Sure. Yeah, you can form an opinion, and the Prime Minister in one of his comments there is accurate that no matter what he says, there are some individuals who are going to make their mind up at first. We miss deception for 3 reasons. We look for the wrong cues. Think of a person as generating symptoms over channels: body language, voice quality, voice content, and then microsignals. So we look at the wrong symptoms. Not enough eye contact, too much gesturing and fidgeting are the wrong symptoms to look for. But there are some very reliable or more reliable body language cues that would be very consistent markers. There's a high probability of deception at work.
But individual movements don't necessarily signal deception.
No, that's correct. We always have to look for cluster of behaviors, because random symptoms just happen, just random human communication cues. A person could be very stressed and not be deceptive.
Right, so it could be a busy day, tough schedule, problems at home, that sort of stuff.
Right, and those things can come to play. Or a person who's a victim. Victims have been known to deceive, but victims also are under a great deal of stress. And so we might misread those cues because now we're honing in on everything.
Right.
And everything means something. Well, he's alive. You don't let him communicate.
Can you form an opinion? Have you formed an opinion that has turned out to be correct simply by looking at a news interview or a story on television? Long distance assessment?
Sure have. I had a case a couple of years ago involving an alleged kidnapping of a young child, 8 months old. And the law enforcement in that state shipped the tapes to me. I was on the far side of the United States. So look at this father. Do you think this is a genuine case of kidnapping? Is there a problem here with the child? And looking at several cues from the father, I said, look, these are the things we need to address. I believe this is a false report. Turned out the child had died from starvation. The parents were negligent, and we were able to solve the case. But there was those cues that gave us the point, this is where we need to focus our questioning.
What sort of cues?
There were verbal cues.
Sweaty brow?
Well, sweating can happen anytime under stress.
Yeah. Or under hot lights.
Under hot lights, studio lights, okay, timing, weather conditions. But I would look at cues, for example, what we call denial. Trust me, believe me, honesty, to tell the truth.
So the harder you try, the bigger the hole you might be digging yourself.
Sure it is.
So you don't always need a machine.
No, that's correct. That's correct. You don't always need the machine. Just as if I can sit down with you, I'm in the fraud events convention coming up this next 3 days, Asian Pacific, and I'm going to sit with some of the insurance investigators and talk to them. These are things we look for with your clients, or those who are trying to beat the system. Look for these verbal cues, or look for body language cues that say this victim, this customer, this individual is not being truthful about their claims.
So there are times when you just know. Your gut says the guy's lying.
Intuitively, we miss half the lies because of looking wrong cues, not looking for the right ones. But when I can say, I believe he's being deceptive because I see and hear these cues, we have a higher credibility rating if you pick the right symptoms.
You a good liar?
No, I'm not. Nobody's a good
Yeah,
liar.
I'm not sure. Are you telling the truth now
That's
or
correct. Lies only succeed when the target of the lie believes it. So my success as a liar depends on your ability to catch me at it.
not? Okay. Right. Stan Walters, thanks for your time.
It's been a pleasure. Thank you
Stan
so much.
Walters. Now, along